Mr. Speaker, after 13 years of Tory failure, the average family in Britain will be poorer than the average family in Poland by 2030.
This is London, a city of iconic skylines, rich history, and boundless energy. From this heart of power, Britain ruled lands spanning a quarter of the globe, amassing wealth and influence that would shape history itself. Fast forward to today, and the picture has changed dramatically. Productivity is falling, foreign investments are dwindling, and the economy is barely growing beyond population rates. Living standards are stagnating, and in a twist almost impossible to imagine, even Poland, a country many still think of as struggling, could soon offer better quality of life than the UK. So, what went wrong? How did one of the world's most powerful economies find itself here? This is the story of what happened to the UK's economy. The state of the United Kingdom. The UK's economy has been on a slow, steady decline for years. If this trend continues unchecked, it could strip away the UK's legacy as one of the world's most powerful economies. Let's dig deeper and look at factors that really hit home, like productivity and inflation. When productivity is high, it generally means rising wages, profits, and tax revenue, all of which drive improvements in everyday life. The UK's productivity grew steadily after World War II and continued to rise until the 2008 financial crisis hit. But while much of the world has bounced back, the UK has been stuck in place, barely seeing any growth in productivity since. And as productivity has stalled, inflation has not followed suit. Recently, inflation hit one of its worst spikes in decades, soaring past 10%, a level not seen since the early 1980s for the Brits. This surge affected nearly every part of daily life, driving up prices for everything from staple groceries like bread, milk, and meat to utility bills, transportation, and meals out. Cell phone and internet costs have also climbed as service providers pass on rising costs to consumers. Finally, the elephant in the room, housing. The housing crisis gripping many developed nations has also hit the UK hard. Today, many are on the brink of homelessness.
I have like an hour to collect my belongings, and then I'll have to take that to the council.
It's not just the economy and living standards that seem to be crumbling. The political scene is right there too. Over the last 6 years, the UK has cycled through 5 prime ministers, including Liz Truss, who served as the UK's shortest-serving PM, lasting just 6 weeks. Beyond Westminster, tension has also continued to grow specifically at the Scotland-England border, which might soon become an international one.
A poll has landed which shows that support for Scottish independence has now hit 56%.
Many believe that another referendum would be a waste of resources, predicting it would end the same way as 2014. But should we really ignore this potential threat to a union that's lasted for centuries? So what else has caused this big mess? Let's dive into the details. And by the way, if you enjoy these economic deep dives, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Why is the UK facing this downfall? If you want the shortest possible answer, it comes down to one word: Brexit. Yes, Brexit. It's arguably done more harm to the UK's economy than almost anything else could. We've covered how Brexit backfired in a previous video, and many of you in the comments shared your opinions. Some even argued it didn't backfire at all, but did exactly what it was supposed to do. But blaming Brexit alone would be oversimplifying things. After all, Brexit only came into full effect in 2020, yet the UK's productivity stalled way back in 2008. First, let's go back to the 2008 financial crisis, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. This was a global catastrophe, not something unique to the UK. In response to the crisis, in 2010, the government implemented austerity measures, slashing spending on social services and welfare. But instead of increasing taxes on the wealthy, they cut welfare budgets. The result? The gap between rich and poor widened, creating one of the highest levels of income inequality in the developed world.
Look at the gap between rich and poor. So this is something called the Gini coefficient. It's a measure of income inequality. And you can see the UK, the higher these bars are, the more unequal. The UK is much more unequal.
This focus on austerity rather than stimulating growth kept the UK's productivity and economy in a low-growth trap. And then came Brexit in 2020, which only added fuel to the fire. But if we're talking about economic missteps, we can't skip over one particular name: Liz Truss. Liz Truss took office as UK Prime Minister on September 5, 2022, during an already shaky financial period. The economy was crying out for sustainable, long-term growth, and while Truss diagnosed this issue correctly, she chose the wrong medicine.
What I'm about is about reducing taxes, getting our economy growing.
She decided to cut taxes dramatically to attract investment and boost growth. To finance this, she issued government bonds, known as gilts, essentially borrowing from the people. Well, that experiment was a huge gamble, and it failed miserably. Almost a month later, investors forced her to take a U-turn. Thus, everyone started questioning her credibility, to which she responded,
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter.
However, due to the severe backlash she'd been facing, she resigned the very next day.
To notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
At the start of her career, she set 3 priorities.
I have 3 priorities for our economy. Growth, growth, and growth.
She failed to meet any of them, and is marked as not just the shortest-serving PM of the UK, but also one of the worst. Liz Truss's brief time wasn't just politically dramatic, but it left tangible economic scars. Her proposed tax cuts, unfunded and reliant on borrowing, led to a surge in government bond yields, a plummeting pound, and ultimately forced the Bank of England to intervene to stabilize markets. Within days, pension funds were under severe stress as gilt prices collapsed, nearly triggering a broader financial crisis. What's ahead for the UK? So, what's next? Can the UK turn this around, or is this decline set to continue? Looking back, it's clear this crisis didn't happen overnight. From 2010 to 2014, the UK had 5 prime ministers, all from the Conservative Party, so it's easy to see why many blame the party for the situation today. But here's a twist. The Conservative Party is out, and as of July 2024, the UK has a new leader, Keir Starmer from the Labour Party. Could this be the change the UK needs? In recent elections, data has shown that young adults, particularly those under 30, overwhelmingly favour Labour over the Conservative Party. This trend became especially pronounced after the 2016 Brexit referendum, with younger voters generally more pro-EU and more concerned about issues like climate change, affordable housing, and income inequality, as is warranted. Polls show that more than 60% of voters aged 18 to 24 supported Labour in the 2019 general election. The shift is so significant that younger generations are now a critical base for Labour's electoral success, and they've begun to further cater their policies on social justice, green energy, and economic reform. As Keir Starmer takes the helm, his challenge will be to retain this youth support. Reviving an economy weighed down by years of political missteps is no simple task, but it's not impossible. If there's any hope of undoing Brexit's impact, many argue that the UK would need to find a way to rejoin the EU. But is that even an option? Technically, yes, but the process is daunting. The UK could only rejoin if all 27 EU members unanimously agreed. And even if they did, it's unlikely that the EU would embrace Britain as it did before. Or would they even want them back? The United Kingdom would be that one troublesome member that had left before and might leave again a decade later. A rejoining UK would likely face stricter conditions, perhaps even adopting the euro or joining the Schengen area, measures the UK once firmly resisted. And there's one more twist: the voice of the people. Does the public want back in? How about its current leadership? Polls may show public interest, but the government's stance is crystal clear. Not even the new Labour government is pushing to rejoin the EU.
No case for rejoining the EU, no case for the customs union or the single market.
With EU re-entry off the table, the question remains, can the UK find its footing without Europe's support? Enter the newest player in this story, Rachel Reeves, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer. Reeves holds the power of the nation's wallet, and she's come up with a controversial economic plan, one that involves borrowing money from citizens by issuing gilts, much like Liz Truss's failed attempt. But Reeves's plan has a critical difference. She's not using this debt to fund tax cuts and wish for growth. Instead, she's focused on strategic investments. The International Monetary Fund, which harshly criticized Truss's policies, has actually welcomed Reeves's budget. Markets have responded positively too, showing cautious optimism. Rejoining the EU may be a long shot, but that doesn't mean the UK can't succeed on its own. Just look at Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland, countries that have forged their own economic paths without EU membership. Norway, for instance, capitalizes on its oil and gas reserves, making it one of the wealthiest countries per capita, while Iceland leverages geothermal energy and a booming tourism sector. Meanwhile, Switzerland has built a highly stable and diversified economy based on finance, pharmaceuticals, and cutting-edge technology, maintaining strong trade relations without full EU integration. Could the UK, with its financial clout, historic trade links, and skilled workforce, follow a similar route? It's possible. The UK still ranks as the world's sixth largest economy, and by already being a global leader in finance, there could be a major opportunity in tech innovation, particularly in fields like fintech and artificial intelligence. To achieve this, the UK must replace the previous benefits it had from the EU. The country will need smart policies that support growth in emerging sectors, while also rebuilding domestic industries that have weakened in recent years. With steady leadership from Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, the UK could pivot toward these opportunities, rebuilding its influence on its own terms. So, what do you think? Can the UK overcome these challenges and return to economic strength? Or is the absence of EU support a hurdle too high? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos as we continue tracking the UK's journey forward.